Hey everyone, Corvus here. Welcome to this video in which I'll be showing you the Sigmarite Mausoleum, a rather big project on which I've been working for the past couple of months. In total there's more than 50 hours of work gone into this project, so I'm very eager to show this to you in a lot greater detail. So what we'll do in this video is first just go over the project in general, how I tackled this, just go over the different pieces a bit, things I did left and right. Then I'll show you all the individual pieces which are in here and also tell you how I painted everything. And for the last part of the video we'll just go and do some of the fun stuff with the scenery, just create some setups, see what's possible with this scenery. Now before we continue, I just would like to mention that I am currently recording this in my kitchen, so I guess the audio there's a bit of an echo here in the kitchen, but anyway, this is my kitchen table here was big enough, and also have this deep cut studio mat here, which fits the table nicely, and which is something I bought especially for occasions like this, so pictures and video and stuff like that. And then the backdrop you see there, which unfortunately is not big enough, is a backdrop that I bought last year in the Christmas store. But unfortunately it's better that it might be a better solution, that it would be a bit bigger than the current setup. But anyway, let's see what we can do with this. And then now we're going to move over to the project. So as I said already, there's quite some stuff here in the box, in the complete set. So what's obvious here is there are quite a lot of these fence pieces. These are four identical fences, these long fences, and then you have these two identical ones with this little Sigmarite. Yeah, what is it? A sun or yeah, the usual Sigmarite logo on there. Which you also see quite often on the Stonecast Eternals hammers and stuff like that, so quite nice detail there. And then these quite regular fences. And then another striking part of the set are these walls, which actually I quite like, especially with the skulls in between. There are three pairs of each, so this shorter, this longer variant, and then these curved sections, which I really like, especially like the inside. Quite a lot of detail there going on with the skulls and the plants. And then you have these gates. For me it would be nice that only one you could do with only one of these gates. Now there are two, because there are two of each sprue in the box, so we get two of these gates. And then I probably at least my favorite part of this set are these crypts. We'll go over these in a bit more detail. So you get 6 of them in total, and they also have some detailing on the inside where you can see this grave inside, and they get mounted on this base, let's say. So you get these bit taller model in the back, small tower on top, also nice. And then these here at the right, back right, you have these statues, which also I think is good as some kind of a centerpiece. So with that being said, let's go over in general the painting process that I did for this. So I just started off, of course, assembling everything and priming. Preparing this, yeah, of course there was a lot of mold line scraping involved, especially these fences. I am someone who cannot stand the remains of a mold line, so yeah, I really started scratching off all the insides of the fences. So like I said at the beginning of the video, this entire project took me, I think, 52 or 53 hours, and I noted everything down. So quite a big project, and a lot of time went into these fences, preparing them, removing the mold lines, but also painting. We'll get to that in a minute. So these fences take up a lot of time. The rest of the parts, especially the crypts, they're quite easy to do, all straight parts. Also these walls, you have these mold lines sometimes on the side, but there's one thing I would like to point out. If you look carefully here, you see some scratching. Maybe there's a bit more obvious on another one. But anyway, what I want to say is that, and this one you see a bit of this rough area here. They're not really mold lines, but these circular shapes in the plastic, which are left over from the molding process. And they're quite hard to remove, so I did quite some deep cuts here with my knife in this, but after it's painted it's not really showing. But that's something you really need to pay attention to. You don't want to have these circular things on your cemetery walls. Quite looks a bit silly. Also here the fences in between, same story, quite a lot of mold line scratching going on there. So that's the preparation. There's two things basically that I wanted to point out, because assembly is very straightforward, and like the fences, there's no assembly going on whatsoever. So the crypts, they're also easy to do. You get this base, which I left off until everything was painted, so only in the final process I attached this. But anyway, these crypts, they are basically 4 parts, so one side and then the two shorter walls here, and that's basically the assembly of the crypts. I believe that this was in 2 parts that got like this together, so also pretty straightforward. And then with the fence, this gate, I mean, there was a bit more work. You had to attach these graves, which were also optional, so you can switch them around, so they're different in the two here. And you had to attach this cross here, and of course the gates. And that's the first thing I just wanted to point out shortly, is that what I chose to do, instead of just gluing them shut, I left them a bit ajar here, left them a bit open. Afterwards I thought, look, if we're going to use this for gaming purpose, then maybe I should have opened it a bit more, but I think that's if you have a game at home, something you can agree upon, that you can just simply move through this gate with your miniatures. So I left this one a bit open, and then this one I somewhat closed it, but to give it a bit more of a dynamic feel, I left it a bit, not really entirely straight, so I left it a bit, a small bit open, but less more prominent. But anyway, to give it a bit of a dynamic feel here. Not really, it's already quite a flat object here, just to give it a bit more depth. And then the second thing I want to point out is this raven, which you can see here on the top, raven or crow, whatever. If you look at the instructions, he's supposed to go here on the cross, but as you can see, I have not put him on the second gate. So I put, like I said, it's in the manual, I put it here on the cross, and then the other one, I was looking for a good spot, and I decided to go with this piece because it fitted nicely here in between these spikes. So put them there, because I think it's a bit silly to have this wild animal, 2 of them in an identical spot. So yeah, I just had to make some to cut off some plastic from his feet, I guess, and then I could glue him here in between these spikes, which is a nice detail, I guess. So now a bit more about the painting. That was about the assembly, the first part, but now about the painting. So I primed everything in black, as you can see on the bottom here. Primed everything black, and then first step was proceeding with all the gray areas, so the stone areas. If you take a look at the box art, you have quite a bit of different textures here, but I decided just to save on the work time, because I knew it was going to soak up a lot of time. So I just went with one color gray for all the stone areas. So if you see take a look at the box art, I believe there's some pieces of wall that have a different color, but anyway, these tiles are different on the different gray. On the box it's more like of a purple, and then these sandy areas, it's also a bit of a painted in a brown or different gray on the box art. I decided to base coat everything in just gray, and then apply some other techniques, which I'll tell you about in a minute, to give a bit more variation to the entire thing. Anyway, the paints I used, you can do this with, of course, with GW paints, but it's going to soak up quite some paint. Projects like this, so I decided on having these crafts paint in a craft store. So there are these tubes with 120 milliliters of paint in it, so it's quite a lot, especially for miniature painting. The bottles we're used to, and I think this sells for less than 10 euros even. So I just decided to pick up the white one and the gray one. So this is this acrylic gray. What's it called here? Neutral gray. This is basically the base coat that I used. Applied this all over the model, and then I had two layers of 2 times. Just I think the first one was a 50-50 mix of this gray and this white, which I dry brushed on there, and the second and final highlight was just pure white, which I applied with a synthetic brush, a white brush like this one. These are my favorite synthetic brushes, the AK interactive brushes. As you can see, these are both number 6 brushes. This one is good for base coating in general, and this is really a brush that you can use for dry brushing. So especially the shape, that's what I used to paint most of do all of the base coating, do all of the dry brushing, and then after that, yeah, just proceeded with the regular number 1 brush for the detailing. The metallics on here, which I used, especially these roofs. Whoops, these roofs. The metallics on here is basically metallic paint, the Balthasar Gold, which is also mentioned on the box that they used. So painting these Balthasar Gold for the roof, just no highlights. And then for this one I used regular Retributor Gold, I believe, with some silver mixed in there for the highlights. Same goes for the details here on the fences, another golden details like this one. The fences themselves are just lead belcher, nothing more than that. Other stuff I base coated, so I base coated everything. So I finished dry brushing the gray, and then I proceeded on base coating everything. So the metallics we already covered. Then you have these flowers, which are the leaves of the flowers. So the green, they're painted with Dead World Forest. So this is a bit of a muted green there. There's also some pieces with plants on them. They're everywhere. Also takes up quite some time to do. So just highlighted this with adding some off-white there in the mix. And the flowers, the Screamer Pink. Also 1 layer of highlight there. Not really a dry brush, just a controlled highlight, but only 1 layer. So we didn't want to spend too much time in that for that. And then the skulls, which were everywhere, like on these walls. Just did the regular recipe with the Steel Legion drab base coat, and then already applied a layer of Agras Earthshade with some null non involved there as well, and that was the base coat for this. I think we covered everything, so quite not really that much different paints used. Alright, there are some other details here and there that I did after this next phase. So the next phase would involve, so everything is base coated, then I just covered everything with a wash of null oil, and that's where the project got split into 2 phases, which I mentioned in one of the previous videos. I basically ran out of null oil, so I split the project. I think I did most of the cribs there and left these gates and these fences for the second phase. Did the walls and the crypts first, so just went on applying the null oil wash. After that, highlighting the skulls, as you can see here, and then it was just finishing up things, so adding the rust effect with the Vallejo Game Color Skin Wash, so adding some rust here and there, and also this green moss effect that I did. I have to look up the paint recipe for that, but I'll put it in the comment in the video description here, which was basically a mix of the green GW wash and then also Vallejo wash, green wash there. But I'll put that in the comments so you can check that out. So it was basically the painting. Also, the one thing I forgot for the bronze, so the Balthasar Gold is the base coat there, and then this oxide is the Neolite oxide, technical paint by GW also. That's what I used for the oxide, especially was fun to do on these roofs. It is two layers to add some kind of striping effect, but yeah, in general very happy with the result. So let's now move on to just briefly going over the different parts here. I already showed you briefly, but just wanted to get a clear overview of what's in this set. Just go over the pieces here one by one. Let's start off with this smaller fence piece. So you got the fencing and also these pillars here on the side, so it can be used as a corner piece, but also in the middle to connect two of the larger pieces. So for example this one, but we'll cover that in greater detail in the final part of the video. We'll check out the setups. So anyway, just a basic piece there with the sigils textured onto the pillars, nice detail. Skulls, like I said, everywhere, and also these plants. This plant here, as you can see, looks a bit flat here. It's a bit of a lesser well-designed part of the kit, but small detail. Most of this kit is really very well done. So this back of the fence looks a bit less interesting, and also this is one of the less stable pieces, but as you can see, it's still, yeah, it's not something you're going to topple over very easily. It has, all of the pieces have quite a wide base there, so same goes for this piece of fence. Other type of fence with a pillar in between, and also this kind of a bit like a gate that you can use here on the side, with the symbol here in the gold, which I mentioned, and then a lot of skulls there underneath. And then we get to the larger fence piece, of which there are 4 in the set. Same goes also here. If you see this, I remember now that I mentioned removing these circular marks. They're also on this part. You just pay close attention. Just cut these away with a knife, like I did here. I mean, the texturing of these stones. This is just a normal texturing here. It's not really going to show if you cut off a piece. It's better to have it like this than having this circular mark on there, which does not look nice here. So quite a larger plant there on the left. So this is the piece that there are 4 of these that probably took up most of the time, especially painting the metallics on there on the fence was really a painstaking job, and of course cleaning the mold lines, which I already mentioned. Move over to the wall pieces. This is the shorter wall with this nice sloping edge here. Pretty cool. And this row of skulls, and then the back you have this hourglass on top of these skulls, and a lot of plants here. And then the larger wall also with this kind of gate here, and these marks here, which I already also painted in the metal color with some rust effects added. And then of course you can see the skulls there on the left of the gate with the candle on top. Really just basic paint job on the candles. And then finally, this is really one of my favorite pieces in the set, especially this inside, which I already mentioned, the skulls and the plants. And then I think, like I did with the moss effect, that's a really cool piece. And then finally, you already saw this in quite some detail, the gate. So you had these bit of options here to switch them around. Not every piece fitted on every gravestone, but you had some options there. And then of course you can play around how you glue these gates, metalwork into place. It's something you can play around with. And then of course the raven that goes on top here, remember you can put it on a different piece as well, if you find a good spot for it. Also spent quite some time on these plants to get them right. Also quite a lot of work in this one. And then we move over to the crypts. So you first have this small one with the base with a couple of gravestones here. And then yeah, you can go quite some distance detailing the inside, but as you can see, there's not really, even there's a lot of light here, you cannot see the inside very well. So I just base coated this and dry brushed like I did with the other pieces, but not really starting painting on gold, for example, on a gravestone that's in the crypt, because yeah, it's not really showing here. Then the second larger crypt, a lot bigger base with a lot of gravestones around this, and you also got these gargoyles on top, which is a nice detail. Only drawback is that these gargoyles are similar, because you get two of these sprues, which are identical. So you have this wall on one sprue and the other wall on another sprue, and a gargoyle on one sprue. You basically get 4 sprues of this, so you can make 2 of these crypts. So these gargoyles, yeah, maybe I'd advise that you leave them off, or maybe on one crypt to create a bit more variance, but now it's really looking very identical if you put the other one next to it. But anyway, nice detail. Also some of these graves are opened with some skulls inside, also nice detailing there going on. And then this bit more tower-like crypt with this structure on top. It's pretty cool. There are also some different gargoyles here, but like I said, maybe you can leave them off on one of the crypts. Might be, in hindsight, might be a good solution to get a bit more variance. Also some of these candles are here, some of these golden sigils here at the bottom. And then the statue, of course, which I think does not really suit the theme. I know on some cemeteries there's this you have in real life cemeteries sometimes a big statue in the middle. Yeah, they could suit this, but anyway, there are 2 in the set here also. So I think if you add one, we'll see later when we do the setups, if you add one in the middle, then I think it looks well enough. But anyway, 2 of these, and also quite some time in there in the skulls. But anyway, looks quite good in the end, I think, with the washes applied and some of the flowers with skulls in between. And then the statue itself, yeah, just this hooded skull figure. Yeah, it really matches the Warhammer universe very well, in my opinion. So I now assembled the set as it's visible on the back side of the box. Let me grab the box for a minute and show you. So this is quite a compressed setup that you're probably never going to use while gaming. So just for this purpose, assembled it like that. There are some leftover pieces here. So 2 of these shorter walls and 2 of these large fences, they're not used in this setup, but apart from that, I think it's quite an optimal setup, which quite honestly looks amazing. Really, this full graveyard, not really a graveyard, but all these crypts. So that now I'm talking about, I think that they would be cool if I don't know if such a set exists, but simply with some flatter bases with some just some gravestones on there would be a nice look. And also, which I already mentioned a couple of times, the fact that there are 2 statues in here and 2 of these gates. I'm not really a fan of that either, but anyway, I hope this is showing well on the picture, because I have some glare coming out of the windows reflecting on the backdrop there, but I think in general you get the idea. This is about the setup that is currently looking like this. So now I'm going to put all the pieces aside and just look for some other setups that you can use, maybe a bit more like you would use in a gaming setup. So let's go. So for demonstration purposes, I just now built this is a bit larger setup. So how I would do this on a typical wargaming battlefield is just create some smaller clusters of crypts, for example, which I just put them a bit closer together to show this. But basically the idea to have these fenced off or partially fenced off areas with 1 crypt and 1 grave, or this statue on the side, for example. So what I did here, I started building this square thing. I think this really can stand on its own in a battlefield. This fenced off area with this 1 tower crypt here in the middle. But what also works are, for example, these partially fenced off areas, and then, like I said before, you can agree with your gaming mates that you can access these gates or even these small fences. You can open them so your miniatures get, your smaller infantry sized models can get through these gates. But just, yeah, of course, if you do not have enough gates unless you buy more sets to fence off everything. So what I suggest you would do is just fence off several areas. Just put this here in the battlefield with a piece of fence next to it. It looks great on its own also. And then of course create a bit more room between the areas you can move in between with your miniatures. Then these curved pieces are already also very useful to set up larger areas. And as you can see, I just left the back open, so you could even remove this. Still looks quite good. Miniatures can go through this. So yeah, a lot of options here. This is another example. So I've used some of these more solid walls. Of course, you can play with that for the line of sight rules if your game has that. And in the end, these statues, yeah, I can put them on the battlefield basically anywhere. I think this is not really themed to the cemetery we have here, the mausoleum we have here. But these can stand on their own on the battlefield, of course. And then, of course, these crypts also. But I think the walls, yeah, you can do a lot of stuff with the walls. You have these longer pieces, the shorter pieces. So, yeah, a lot of possibilities to set this up. So that brings us to the end of this video. Please let me know what you think of this project, and if you also tackled similar projects. Maybe tell me a bit about the scenery you use for your wargaming. Is it unpainted? Is it just some stuff you cut from foam yourself, for example? Or are you like me, a fan of DW plastics? I think they did a great job with this kit. And of course, if you put the amount of hours into it, like I did, you get a great end result. But be prepared to tackle this. Put aside many hours. For me, it was, I think I started this in August, so August, September, October. I think 3 months. Most of my painting time was spent on this project, and also assembly, of course. But anyway, I hope you like this. Please remember, if you want to buy this with a discount, please click the link in the video description. There will be other links there as well to the paints I used. So that's all of this video now. I hope you liked it. Please see you in the next video and have a great rest of the day. See you. Bye.